Welcome to the GreenStaxx podcast, Thinking Inside the Box. I'm Julia Hansen, your host, and I'm the Director of Business Development and Partnerships at GreenStaxx. And the goal with this mini-series is to advance modular multifamily construction by sharing GreenStaxx's experience with standardized replicable unit designs and hosting conversations with some of the key players in our process. So today I'm here with Justin McFarlane of 902 Development. And Justin is a partner in the most recent project that GreenStaxx has done, which is a double triple decker in Lowell, Massachusetts. And today we'll be diving into his perspective as a developer using the GreenStaxx system for modular multifamily projects. Welcome, Justin. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey, good afternoon, Julia.
So let's just get into it. Tell me a little bit more about 902 Development and how did you get into multifamily development yourself?
Well, it's a long story. My wife and I about a decade ago moved from Canada down to Massachusetts to explore opportunities, chase the American dream. My first position in the United States was in a maintenance facility with a nationwide property management firm. That's where I would say I cut my teeth in on the maintenance side of property management. Started learning sort of the ins and outs of construction, of maintaining buildings, and then had the opportunity to move into a property management role with a smaller regional property management firm. From there, I was hired on to a development team with my mentor, or by my mentor, Joseph Taganji with D2 Development. And he really showed me the ropes on how to manage, develop, acquire real estate in Massachusetts. From there, I started my own development company. We initially focused on adaptive reuse projects or historic renovations. Most recently we've completed a 24-unit ground-up construction project in Lowell, Massachusetts. We currently have another 26 units under construction that is going to be an adaptive reuse of a former gym facility. And that's now we're predominantly focused on modular construction and how to incorporate successful modular builds into our portfolio.
Wow. So you really had the insiders, like literally from the inside the building, looking outwards on your road to becoming a developer. That's really cool. And so did you have any experience using modular systems before starting this project that 902 developed alongside Oaktree on 102 Westford Street, Lowell?
Well, in my role as a project manager for D2 Development, I was able to work on a 14-unit modular project in Rosendale. That was my first. That was my crash course in modular. It really was not. It did not go how I thought it was going to go. Mainly because, I had no experience in it. It is a completely different animal. For me, initially modular to me was just, order the boxes, have them delivered. The factory will figure everything out. That was a very amateur way of looking at it. And I've since realize that the heavy lifting is done up front. If you want a modular project to go smoothly, you have to put the legwork in much further in advance that you would typically do with a stick-built project.
Mm-hmm. And so after having that sort of awakening on your first modular project back with your former company, what made you decide to look at it again in the context of the double triple decker, and using Gwen's design for a modernized triple decker?
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting Gwen during the construction of her Newtonville project. We're probably going back 5 or 6 years now, maybe even more. But I had been invited to walk the site with Gwen and spend some time with her and see the boxes actually fly into place, be bolted down, and it was just amazing. To walk into a box that was just set and see tile in place, to see faucets in place, to see finishes completed. It was eye-opening for me. Typically we see the greatest lag between the greatest, I guess, lag from a general contractor in those finishing stages. So finishes, they can take a while, and to see a lot of that work having been completed in advance was really cool. And then listening to Gwen and trying to understand her vision for modular was also eye-opening, and realizing that there are sustainability aspects, there are there are means and methods of construction that I was not familiar with that would expedite the process. It was just it's fascinating, and I truly believe it's an untapped market.
Mm-hmm. And what made you decide to partner with Gwen via Oaktree Development on this particular project on 102, 108 Westford Street?
So Lowell is where the majority of my portfolio lies. Lowell is an incredible market, ripe for development. The real estate is attainable in Lowell. Working with the city is a pleasure. And then Gwen has a substantial amount of knowledge and experience, and her her vision of an attainable and replicable product was something that I had been studying for years. And this is, as soon as she showed me that design, I knew that I wanted to build that or versions of that design going forward.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that design, because as you know, and as our listeners know, Gwen's triple decker standardized design was originally built for a project in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it was designed to be a single triple decker, so just 3 units, and it had passive house features, certified passive house. So what were the changes, or let's talk about the customizations that needed to happen between that original design and the vision or the needs that you had as a developer for this new project in Lowell?
Sure. So that's a good question. There were several changes that we made. I think the majority of the changes were based on the fact that this would be a portfolio rental project,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the Cambridge product ended up being owned by a private individual. So a lot of the customization on the Cambridge project came at the behest of the owner, whereas when Gwen and I were designing or tailoring or customizing the Lowell project, we were gearing it towards the local rental market and incorporating elements of design elements that would be easy to maintain,
Mm-hmm.
certain elements that would be, have a, ease of use functionality. So we wanted everyone to be able to see themselves renting that,
Mm-hmm.
renting a unit in that project.
Got it. And what were some examples of that? I recall during one of the walkthroughs I've been on is that maybe the windows were a little bit different from the Cambridge design. Anything that you want to highlight about those customizations?
Well, what's interesting about, obviously it's a double triple decker. So
Mm-hmm.
Cambridge was just a triple decker. So we had to move some, we had to tweak the window placement. This is not a certified passive house, so we were able to play with the mechanical systems to make make it a little more cost effective.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, they are still incredibly energy efficient and, in my opinion, surpass efficiency of other rentals in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So by no means did we scale down. We just tweaked things a little bit.
Right.
The window layouts, again, were slightly different. There are no balconies. That was something that we had initially discussed with the city, but they felt as though it would impede too much on the street.
Hmm.
So we wanted to be cognizant of the city's needs and wants, because we plan to do this again and again in the city of Lowell,
Mm-hmm.
and we really wanted to show them that we could get it done fast, and we could get it done according to plan.
Right. And so I want to dig into a little bit more about your experience working with the city of Lowell. Great to hear that they were a pleasure to work with. But starting with a set of designs that had been approved by the Cambridge Building Department, were there any particular hurdles that you had to go over in order to have the Lowell Building Department sign off on these plans? Curious to hear about the sort of experience of switching municipalities with a standardized design.
Sure. The city of Lowell, again, has been a pleasure to deal with. They are they look for developers. They're looking for developers to come to the city to work with them, to enhance streetscapes, to create housing, and they're not afraid of taking chances. That said, the majority of the developers that I've met in the city of Lowell are responsible developers. It's just the city has the foresight to, allow these type of projects to start. So, the majority of the vetting of the plans is done prior to bringing the official set to the building department. So a
Mm-hmm.
third party in modular construction, a third party will review the plan set and sign off on it at a state level. From
Mm-hmm.
there, it gets brought to the city or town in which you're looking to construct the project. there's always a learning curve. Not every town or city has worked with modular before. So when we brought the plans that had been vetted by the state and approved by the state, the city said, just give us a few weeks to process this. They had a few
Hmm.
questions, but they were, at the end of the day, because the product was so solid, due to the test case that was conducted in Cambridge, there really were no hurdles,
Hmm.
aside from some of the aesthetics and cladding requirements that the city looked for. So from a
Okay,
design perspective, it was pretty clean.
great. Yeah. I guess it really helps to have that sign off on a state level so that the local building department just really needs to review it and add anything that might be of local pertinence, like uh, the sort of aesthetics on the outside of the building.
Yeah, of course.
So, how did the overall cost and timeline of this project, and I should say that the project is almost like 99% near completion at this point. So I think we can speak about sort of the project as a almost completed project. Um, how did your initial expectations on cost and timeline compare in the real world as the project played out?
Well, the nice thing about modular is that unless you um, really mess something up in the field, your costs are going to be um, very close to what you initially budgeted. Before you even begin construction on a module, you have a price breakdown from the manufacturer. So
Hmm.
your construction costs are laid out prior to moving forward on anything. So the budgeting aspect of this project was fairly simple because we had a lot of the numbers up front from the modular manufacturer. Unless we, really moved away from the aesthetic designs, we
Hmm.
knew we were going to be on target. Um, if we had made a mistake in the field, we would have seen, the budget, increase. But because we had experience in the area, I own a project across the street, so we were familiar with, uh, you know, soil. We were familiar with the sewer design, electrical requirements from the electrical supplier. So we knew we'd be running overhead
Hmm.
power lines, that sort of thing. So we were fairly certain on what our costs were going to be. Um, the I think the only thing that really would have, I think going forward, we would have changed were some of the, uh, I guess it would be in site selection. So we did select a site that was predominantly ledge. So,
Hmm.
getting through that ledge took, a little more time than we anticipated.
Hmm.
So to get the foundation in, that was a cost that we hadn't anticipated. But we ended up fairly close. As far as our timeline, it exceeded my expectations. They were able to they were able to close down the street over the course of 2 days, and in 7 total hours, they had set all 12 modules. So that is uh, literally having the modules roll up in front of the lot,
Hmm.
having them craned off the truck, and having them set onto the foundation and then stacked. So I sat across the street and watched these modules over the course of 7 hours be set, and it was just incredible. So
Wow. Hmm.
it exceeded all timelines significantly.
Wow. And just going back to that idea of predictability with construction costs when using a modular process. You and I have talked a little bit before this episode about the total project costs, and it really kind of worked out that roughly 2/3 of the total construction costs were the modular boxes. And so being able to see 2/3 of your budget on construction going up in 7 hours, and suddenly all materializing on the site does sound really special. And then also I just wanted to bring in the role of the construction manager that worked on this project, and knowing that their piece of the puzzle between the button up of the modules and the exterior of the building and the foundation and the site work, all of that represents another roughly 1/3 of the construction costs of this project, right?
Correct.
And so how was your experience working, with that sort of next third of your budget, but next several months of your timeline, working to sort of tie up all those pieces after the modules were delivered?
So one thing I cannot stress enough is the importance of a competent general contractor. I'm actually a licensed general contractor, but I do know my strengths and weaknesses, and they're certainly not in modular construction. Gwen and I selected Performance Building Company out of Chelmsford, Massachusetts, to do the button-up work, and because they have experience in modular, they have the systems in place to coordinate their subcontractors. And because they took the time prior to the modules being delivered to get to know the project, they had everything under control from the get-go. So the idea that you could, just go to a modular manufacturer and order the boxes and then sort of wing it is something that is just not feasible if you're trying to meet a certain, budgetary goal or timeline. These guys are excellent, and it shows in the product that they've produced.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, partnerships is really what makes the modular system come together, it seems. So Justin, do you think that you'll be doing more double or single or maybe even triple deckers in Lowell using the GreenStaxx process and the modular process?
Right now, it's my focus. My focus is on finding sites that I can use this design on. So, from early in my career, my goal was, your goal is to always tailor a building to a site. What I'm working on now is tailoring the site to the building.
Nice.
And it's much easier because, you have those, what your budget is. Now you just have to go out and find that perfect site that meets, the size requirements, and, from a portfolio and rental perspective meets those, the cash flow requirements and to cover your debt service. So,
Yeah.
it makes things a lot easier. And it's I don't want to say it's turning the industry on its head quite yet, but it's something that in the last few years I've fielded hundreds of phone calls from small developers or even private individuals who said, how can I do this? What do I do now? And so it's really taken hold and people are noticing.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it really does seem like the approach the problem from the opposite direction as the industry has done typically. And what do you expect in terms of the ability to replicate this same product and process again? GreenStaxx is all about finding those savings in the design and engineering costs and in the sort of like all the decision making that goes into creating like a one-off building is something that we seek to remove with our standardized process. What do you think you can where do you think you can reduce costs if you were to do the same project again on another site in Lowell?
Again, site selection is
Mm-hmm.
key. So if there is, if there's a site that is, I would say, more conducive to excavation. So, perhaps there isn't as much ledge if we, prior to acquiring the site, if we, were able to conduct additional due diligence on, by not only surveying the site, but, digging test pits, that sort of thing. That would bring costs down significantly. There are some elements of the design that, depending on where we do our next version of this product, we might be able to save. For instance, we have a panelized cladding system that, may be a little more expensive than perhaps, vinyl clad
Mm-hmm.
building. But realistically, it's the time and the costs associated with that time where you find the real savings. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that we could speed the timeline up by several months, which reduces your carry costs, your interest carry, which make up a large chunk of the budget. So it's not necessarily going to be in the actual materials or
Mm-hmm.
the building itself, but in the site and the carry costs.
Right.
That's where you're going to find your savings.
Right. Great. Um, Justin, what do you feel right now are the biggest challenges affecting small to medium-sized developers like yourself?
I'd say right now it's financing.
Mm-hmm.
Lenders are being very careful, and we really had to sell this product to our lender
Mm.
because they weren't familiar with modular construction. So to get a lender on board in a traditional stick built product, you really just have to go to them, ensure that you're meeting, your debt service requirements, and
Mm-hmm.
take out a loan. I don't want to simplify that process too much, but realistically, that's it. With modular, the bank wants to know, okay, well, when do we lend you the money? Do we lend you the money when the product is being fabricated? Do we lend you the money when it arrives on
Mm-hmm.
site? So those are aspects of modular construction that can be difficult to navigate. We've worked a lot with several lenders in the area who have
Mm-hmm.
familiarized themselves with modular in their conversations with us. So going forward, I think that will be, that will be easier. But
Mm-hmm.
today, the lending market is tough overall, not just from a industry lack of knowledge, but from an actual interest rate perspective and the cost of borrowing.
Right. So aside from becoming more familiar with um, the way that modular works in terms of, when do you need to pay a deposit to the modular manufacturer and when do other sources of capital, when are they required along the process? Aside from that, is there anything else that um, sort of the financial sector can do to increase the ability for small to medium-sized developers to do this kind of, I would say, like infill projects, or sort of, projects that really lend themselves to improving the quality of life and walkability and density of cities like Lowell.
Uh, I believe so. I think, eventually lenders are going to have to see or have to look at modular as a, a means of improving cityscapes, and have that desire to engage with developers to bring life to the community. So we work with a lot of regional banks,
Mm-hmm.
banks that are either headquartered in the city of Lowell or in the Merrimack, the greater Merrimack Valley
Mm-hmm.
region. Um, and they know how important it is to bring housing, bring new, create housing, and bringing diverse housing opportunities to the city. They know how important that is. Um, so eventually these institutions are going to have to understand that they can't require a developer to put up the majority of their cash up front.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have to be more of a partnership going forward, where the bank says, okay, um, you know, you put down a certain amount, and we'll match it accordingly. Whereas right now, banks are hesitant um, on making funding available for construction that is ongoing but off-site. So if they
Hmm.
can't see it, they don't, in their minds, it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So until that product is on site, they don't want to honor applications for payment, which puts a lot of strain on
Mm-hmm.
developers. So
Mm-hmm.
going forward, you know, creating a stronger partnership with these lenders will, you know, reduce the upfront equity requirements of the
Mm-hmm.
developer. And I think that, that is what we'll have to focus on going forward, is selling lending institutions on that
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well put. Mm-hmm. Well, Justin, thank you so much. This brings us to the end of our episode. But it's been great to chat with you about all that went into using a standardized design in your new projects. Congratulations on having that be 99% finished. In our next episode, we're going to hear from the architect that worked on this project in Lowell, as well as the original design in Cambridge. And we'll go even deeper into those savings on time and cost from a design and architectural engineering perspective. So this is great context to set us up for that. So thank you for listening to the GreenStaxx podcast, Thinking Inside the Box. Please remember to subscribe if you enjoyed this episode and leave any comments or questions below. The future is modular.